Coming up on Network Africa. 6 people confirmed dead, 31 still missing days after a ferry carrying 161 people sank in Gabon. Malawi closes schools in Cyclone Ferry aftermath. Plus, at least 17 people killed by ADF rebels in East DR Congo. Hello and welcome to Network Africa. I'm Joke Rogers here in Lagos. We start today in Gabon, where authorities are continuing search operations for 31 people after a ferry sank last week in the coastal area, killing 6 people. The Esther Miracle ferry, operated by Royal Coast Marine, was carrying 161 passengers en route to Port-Gentil from Libreville when it sank. Air Force pilot Lieutenant Modeste Mizui told the media that the Air Force has been conducting daily search operations to find the missing people. This is in addition to diving teams looking for the shipwreck. Meanwhile, 22 migrants have been killed after a boat carrying 47 people sank off the coast of Madagascar on its way to the French island of Mayotte. 23 people were saved, while a search for 2 still missing is still underway. The Madagascar Migrant Agency said the migrants had covertly taken the boat to Mayotte. Most of those who were rescued fled to avoid being arrested. Authorities in Malawi have closed schools in 10 southern districts over safety concerns after Cyclone Ferry caused devastation in neighboring Mozambique. Heavy rains pounding southern Malawi washed away roads and disrupted power generation, with more rainfall expected in the next few days. Physical classes have been suspended for Monday and Tuesday in all learning institutions in the districts, while teachers and students are being encouraged to use available online platforms and radio lessons. Neighboring Mozambique has received more than a year's worth of rainfall in the past 4 weeks as Cyclone Ferry made landfall on Sunday for the second time in a month. The death toll in Mozambique is at least 28. Let's get more of that as we bring in the VOA's Lamek Messina. Lamek joins us online from Blantyre in Malawi. Thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you so much. Welcome.
So what's the latest on the aftermath of the storm?
The latest is that the death toll has increased from 11 this morning up to 40 this afternoon. And the rescue operations are still underway amid the problem which the police say is hampering them because of the continuous rains which are ongoing right now.
So Malawi is not the only country where Ferry has wreaked havoc. Madagascar has also been affected. Are there other countries suffering from the effects of Ferry?
Yeah, at the moment it's only Mozambique and Madagascar, as already stated. But according to the meteorological experts, they say from Malawi now, the cyclone is heading to Zambia and Zimbabwe.
What's been the Malawian government's response outside of, closing of schools?
Yeah, the response is that now it has put forward the rescue team. For example, they have deployed the military, the police, and the Red Cross Society, which have gone to the affected areas where they are conducting rescue operations.
So did the government call for, humanitarian assistance? And if so, who is responding to this call? Who has responded so far?
So far, it's the UN which is responding because a few minutes ago I talked to the representative of UNFP Populations Agency, the UNFPA. The UN, she said that the organization has put some measures to reach out to the vulnerables in the poor areas where the floods or where the cyclone has hit most. For example, it is organizing materials for health issues like something on family planning and also sanitation.
So what are the greatest areas of need at this time for those affected by the storm?
Basically, now the greatest need is shelter and food, also medical supplies, because the cyclone has also destroyed some hospitals and also houses of people, and also they have it has washed away the crops in these affected areas.
And in terms of evacuations, you did say that, some of the greatest needs is shelter and, of course, food. And, people need to be taken out of danger zones. Where have people been moved to, and how much success, has been recorded in saving such people?
Yeah, at the moment, some are being moved into schools. But the problem is the transportation, because even the roads have been blocked by the trees and also the floods. So there's little effort at the moment because the rains still continue. Maybe in the next 2 or 3 days, when the net experts say the cycle will be moving away from Malawi to other areas.
We did mention just a few minutes ago about, other neighboring countries that were affected by this cyclone. How have they been affected? What do you hear about maybe evacuations and people being in need in such countries as well?
At the moment, the neighboring countries which I can say has been affected, it's only Mozambique, because in Zambia and Zimbabwe, the cyclone is yet to go there. It is moving there from here. But in Mozambique, there are a lot of disasters. I think statistics show that about 30 people were killed, and the rescue operations are still there, and also the cyclone is still, maybe the effects now are still hitting hard there.
Right, Lemek, thank you so much for giving us an update on that situation in Malawi.
Yeah.
More migrant news now, but this time off Libya's coast, where about 30 people are missing and feared dead after a boat carrying migrants capsized. A humanitarian group, Alarm Phone, said they would have survived if Europe had not decided to let them drown. The charity says it had alerted the authorities in Libya, Italy and Malta after information came through from migrants on the boat on Saturday, while the Italian Coast Guard attributed the responsibility to Libya, since the vessel was in the Libyan search and rescue zone and was difficult to reach because of bad weather. The Libyans complained that they had no available boats to send. Italy's right-wing government, led by Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, is facing sharp criticism for failing to act promptly to save the people. And 2 football players have died after they were struck by lightning while playing a match in Kisii County, Western Kenya. 2 others were taken to hospital with injuries. A Football Federation official was quoted as saying that the teams were in a friendly match when it began to rain. The official urged the authorities to install lightning arresters in public areas, including schools, where matches take place in order to reduce such incidents. 2 foreign tourists, a German and a Swiss, have died in an accident in Kenya's Masai Mara Game Reserve over the weekend. The accident happened after a vehicle they were using for their tour veered off the road. The vehicle was carrying 3 German and 2 Swiss nationals where the accident happened along the Shekani Mara Bridge. One other tourist was injured and 2 others escaped unhurt. The injured tourists have been lifted to a hospital in Kenya's capital, Nairobi. Kenyan police say that the accident is being investigated. Suspected rebels from the Allied Democratic Forces have killed at least 17 people in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, the second mass killing in less than a week. They also set fire to buildings during the dawn raid on Kirindera in North Kivu province. On Wednesday, 45 people were killed during a raid on 2 villages by the same rebels who are said to have had links to the Islamic State group. Peace talks have been tried to no avail, and the Ugandan army has been in North Kivu to fight the ADF rebels for over a year without success. Last week alone, the ADF killed dozens of civilians in 3 villages. Angola is now sending troops to North Kivu. Kenyan and Burundian soldiers are already there. And the United Nations Refugee Agency has raised alarm over the massive displacement of people in the Democratic Republic of Congo following violent clashes between non-state armed groups as well as government forces. Briefing journalists in New York, spokesperson Stefan Dujarric put at least 300,000 the number of people who fled across Rutshuru and Masisi territories in February alone.
Very much join our colleagues in the UN Refugee Agency at being alarmed by the massive displacement of people following violent clashes between non-state armed groups and government forces. In February alone, 300,000 people fled across Rutshuru and Masisi territories in the North Kivu province. More than 5,500 people have also crossed the border into neighboring Rwanda since January, and another 5,300 men, women, and children into Uganda. This as insecurity and violence continues to impact the border regions almost on a daily basis. In the past year, over 800,000 people have been displaced, including towards the provinces of South Kivu and Ituri. UNHCR and its partners are urgently scaling up humanitarian protection assistance to tackle the urgent needs. While efforts are made to provide protection and assistance to those displaced close to Goma, UNHCR says today they are deeply concerned about restricted humanitarian access to displaced population in other parts of North Kivu, as major routes or impacted areas have frequently been inaccessible. This year, UNHCR is asking for $232.6 million to assist internally displaced people and refugees in the DRC. As of today, the appeal is only 8% funded.
Hey, Nigeria, as citizens continue to struggle to access cash, point-of-sale agents, popularly known as POS agents, who have been accused of hiking charges, are now lamenting naira scarcity. Our reports say more than 50% of them have shut down businesses across the country. Our correspondent, Kelly Egiga, visited some agents here in Lagos and now reports.
It's early in the day and tempers are rising as this customer jostles to get money. And long before the banks open their doors, crowds gather with Nigerians desperate to take out cash. And yet, many are left with exasperation, rage, and fury.
It's because of boundary, that's why I come and kill since 6:30.
Ayo Destiny, a civil engineering graduate, but now a laundryman, tells me of his anger and frustration.
When you use ATM for POS, the charge is too much. When you meet some of them, they will say they are buying the money. Imagine you want to collect 3,000 naira, they will be charging you for 1,000 naira. How much is the money?
But while many Nigerians blame POS agents, our camera lens catches some shops lying dormant or closed, while some agents share their difficulties with me.
If there is cash, that is when you say you want to run a business, and that's when the business keeps going. But without the cash to run the business, you know, everything is flopped.
have been coming down to people selling RAM, buying cash from them. So majority of the citizens putting blame on POS people that they were the one using the cash, things like that. I don't think POS agents are having issue because most of the citizens too, they are also selling cash for all POS agents.
Meanwhile, Oluwatosi, a graduate of mass communication and a POS agent, also corroborates reports of buying cash.
It has not been easy at all. To get cash, we have to negotiate with majority of filling station, and most of them, if you speak with their manager, they will tell you that if they want to give you 100,000, they want to collect 20,000.
But let's do the maths. Apparently, some POS operators are charged as high as 10 to 20% when purchasing the Naira. And even worse is that these exchanges take place outside the banking system. It's 1 p.m. Nigerian time, and while some businesses around these areas are opened, this POS business is still closed. And that's perhaps one of the reasons why more knocks and criticisms have continued to pour in for the Central Bank of Nigeria. That's the country's apex bank, over what some financial experts have described as the introduction of controversial monetary policies, such as the cash withdrawal limit and the Naira redesign project. But while this cash crunch continues to bite even harder on the average Nigerian household across the country, there are indeed many questions begging for answers, such as just how long will Nigerians endure this Naira scarcity era? Plus, what is the fate of POS businesses across the country? And Nigerians are also anticipating just when Mr. President or the CBN governor will address this issue of cash crunch across the country. From Nigeria's commercial capital, I am Kelly Egiga, reporting for Channels Television News.
Elsewhere on the continent, as extremist violence in West Africa's Sahel region spreads south towards coastal states, the United States military has launched its annual military training exercise aimed at helping armies contain the jihadi threat. Soldiers from several African countries are being trained in the counterinsurgency tactics as part of the annual U.S.-led exercise known as Flintlock that began this week. About 1,300 military personnel from 29 countries are training in Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire amid surging jihadi violence linked to Al-Qaeda, the Islamic State group that has killed thousands, displaced millions, and plunged countries into crisis. This year, a U.S. Flintlock two-week event is taking place amid growing anti-French sentiment in West Africa. Mali and Burkina Faso have ended their military cooperation with France, complaining that the French military presence over several years has done little to stem the growth of jihadi violence. The military juntas ruling Mali and Burkina Faso are now getting military support from Russia and Mali, and is also working with the private mercenary outfit, the Wagner Group. The U.S. says it wants to help African countries stem the extremist threat before it spreads further across the region. And for the first time at Flintlock, there's a site dedicated to maritime training where military forces practice search and seizure and other tactics in order to stave off the growing threat of piracy in the Gulf of Guinea. And residents of Mukondi village in eastern Congo remember how they fled their lives as rebels cut the throats of people around them. They recount the horrors they passed through, even as they inspect the burnt-out remains of their homes with a view of settling back in.
Members of the Allied Democratic Forces struck Mukondi and the neighboring village overnight, torching buildings, killing at least 39 people and wounding many more.
People were killed here. Houses were burned. They were killed with machete and set on fire. But there was no crackling of bullets. In fact, 31 men were killed in Mukondi, and in a village near us, about 2 kilometers away, 8 people were killed.
The scale of the bloodshed has shocked the broader community in North Kivu province that's been menaced by marauding armed rebel groups since wars in the 1990s. The Islamist militant group attacked the villages as residents were celebrating International Women's Day. Mukondi farmer Kambale Kiviko said he only realized the village was under attack when he saw smoke rising into the air as he came back from the fields. Soon after, he was forced to the ground at gunpoint. The Islamic State, which the AGF pledged allegiance to in 2019, claimed responsibility for the attack. According to Kivu Security Tracker, the ADF, a Ugandan armed group, is one of the main militant groups behind the bloodshed in eastern Congo, where around 10,000 people have been killed since 2017.
South Africa has deployed military personnel to hospitals as a public health crisis intensifies after medics joined other public service workers in a strike to demand better pay. The military personnel are offering medical services in the worst affected facilities. Public workers have been protesting since Monday last week to demand a 10% wage hike. The government has offered 4.7%. Their union has vowed to intensify the strike until its demands are met. Emergency teams are believed to have been unable to respond to some emergency calls as access to some facilities remain blocked. Health Minister Joe Hala says the strike has led to the loss of lives. Finally on the program, in the largely male-dominated sector, Michelle Gwatimba runs a small farm north of Zimbabwe's capital, Harare. She's not only blazing the trail for women, but also provides a lifeline for those who survived violence. Take a listen.
As the sweltering morning sun beats down on them, about half a dozen young Zimbabwean women stack green tobacco leaves into sheaves, while another group, some with babies on their backs, load the harvested crop onto a tractor.
We realized that in the settlements around the farm, where we get most of our staff, there was a lot of GBV. We'd be hearing a lot of stories. There was a lot of women who would then come to us asking for food or for shelter or somewhere to run away from. Because I don't know, an idle mind, you know, is the devil's workshop. So we ended up just employing all of these women until we then came, my team and I came up with a strategy that says in every project that we do, either it's tobacco, either it's the soybeans, maize, whatever we're doing here, we try our very best to make sure that the staff complement is at least 75%, and the 25% is the men for the heavy lifting.
Gwatimba went into farming after leaving a lucrative job in Harare as an IT technician in 2019. She found being one of few women in the tobacco industry intimidating, but says it is rewarding. Speaking at the opening of the tobacco auction floor, chairperson of the Tobacco Marketing Board, Sir Patrick Devenish, said the rise of women in Zimbabwe's tobacco farming industry has been great in improving the quality and quantity of the crop.
Are very good at paying attention to detail, and more ladies are taking up farming.
In more than 2 decades since the chaotic land reform program that dispossessed thousands of white commercial farmers, Zimbabwe is witnessing a new wave of young black farmers taking up tobacco farming, one of its biggest cash crops. According to official figures, it constituted about 12% of the southern African country's total exports in January. Most other growers are contracted by private companies to produce the crop and receive seeds, fertilizers, and chemicals to help boost output.
A domino effect. We produce more and the economy flourishes.
That's the program today. Thank you for watching. I'm Jaka Rajas.